It was the worst day of my life. Me, mom, and dad were in the courtroom. They were getting divorced. My mother sued my father for half of his money and found another man. How could she? The jury were whispering and pointing at dad. Yes, he's special. He has a rare disease. At the age of 13, he stopped growing, and he looks like a teenager all his life. They should be ashamed. To forget this nightmare, we moved. Dad, despite the fact that mother sued half of the state, continued to successfully run his business. He's awesome. I went to a private school with an emphasis on literature, and of course, on the first day, the local teacher confused my father with a schoolboy. She yelled at us like we were skipping school. The next day, my dad decided to please me. It was almost Christmas, and he brought gorgeous Christmas tree with beautiful decorations and garlands to the school hall. It looked like a jewelry boutique on the tree. When that teacher, Amber, saw dad with the tree, she immediately understood everything. She started to apologize for that yesterday's confuse. Well, of course, my kind dad made a joke of it and continued to chat with her sweetly. My dad just doesn't hold a grudge. Lucky for you, Amber. Christmas dinner was coming up and dad called the guests, though didn't say whom. I decided to show off and prepared my signature dish, a ham. The evening promised to be fabulous, but I definitely didn't expect such guests. Amber was standing in front of me with a festive ham in her hands. Is this a joke? When did she and dad get so close? I wanted to please dad with my signature ham, but he tried her dish first and even praised it. The evening was ruined. But gifts always lifted my spirits. By the fireplace, my dad handed me an expensive Parker pen that I'd been dreaming about for a long time, but I didn't dare ask for it. Cool. And Amber, dad invited her to a concert. No way! It seems that it was going to be a real date. In the evening, dad went to this concert and didn't return home at night. Did he really stay with Amber? In the early morning, dad showed up as if nothing had happened and took me to school. Amber was waiting for us in the school parking. And then I saw her, returning dad's watch. Everything was confirmed. I sadly trudged to class. When I came in, everyone was giggling, and there was a drawing of dad and Amber all over the blackboard, and it had inscriptions saying teachers in love with a youngster, so the whole school knew about it. Because of meetings with the teacher and workload, dad spent very little time with me. And finally came her special day with dad. We usually go to the mall, watch movies, shop, and have fun. Just him and I. We went to another boutique. I picked up a bunch of clothes and went to the fitting room. But when I came out, dad wasn't there. I was really scared. But a few minutes later, he returned with the kitten in his arms. I couldn't even dream of this. But of course, the gift wasn't for me. We took Fuzzy to Amber's. I was starting to hate her. I tried to tell my father that they weren't a couple, but he wouldn't listen. Amber this, Amber that. She got into her family and no one even asked me because she's perfect. No one's perfect. She opened the door all dressed up. And from her conversation with dad, I realized that they were going to a restaurant. Yeah, now I know why she's dressed up like this. I pretended to be a nice girl and offered to babysit the cat while they were at the restaurant, although I had other plans. As soon as the door closed behind them, I decided to look around. But then Fluffy began to pitifully meow. Apparently it was hungry. I decided to feed it and opened the cupboard to get food, but instead, I found a box. It was a bunch of dad's notices. Wow, our Miss Perfect was drowning in dads. I turned on Sherlock mode and went to her bedroom. There was a laptop next to her bed. I can definitely find something interesting there. Bingo! There was our sweet Amber's messages to a friend saying she really needed money. What's this? Is this a link to dad's company's website? Here you are. I heard the sound of an approaching car outside the window, but when the door opened, all I saw was Amber. Dad was called to another emergency meeting. I don't know who was more upset, me or the teacher. To give Amber her due, she played her part well, even offering to give me a ride home. She never stopped talking during the ride, and in the end, she suddenly gave out that she loved my dad. What kind of a liar was she? I told her what I thought and ran away. I was so disgusted. I tossed and turned all night, and I don't even remember when I fell asleep. In the morning, I was woken up by the smell of fresh pancakes. I ran to the kitchen without even changing my pajamas. I haven't seen my dad this happy in a long time. When I asked what time he came back, it turned out that he hadn't spent the night night at home again. He was out with Amber all night, and then I exploded. I told him that she only wanted money from him. I wanted to tell him about the debts and loans, but he abruptly cut me off. It was the first time I'd seen my father so angry. He said that he understood that I decided to come up with some hooey about Amber out of jealousy, and sternly added that I better not get involved in adult matters that I don't understand yet. I couldn't hold back my tears. But Dad, what about... He came up to his senses and began to speak more softly, but I didn't back down. I kept saying she was trying to trick him. I had just started talking about the messages when Dad said that Amber and I needed to get to know each other, and we were all going to paintball together. Well, perfect. We ran into Amber's ex on the paintball field. You should have seen her face at that moment. Her ex began to bully my dad, calling him a baby and child. How dare he? Amber immediately answered him and he blushed and left. For a second, I even respected her, but only for a second. I've seen all the evidence. And I shot Amber, but I accidentally hit her in the head. I didn't want it, but she immediately left, saying that she had to teach someone extra classes. We didn't play anymore because Dad was in a bad mood. I felt guilty and tried to apologize, but he interrupted me and said that I had disappointed him. It hurt me. The next day I came to school in a bad mood, but my stupid classmates jumped on me right from the doorway. Like I got an A in literature because I'm now the teacher's favorite. Were they even serious? I couldn't bear it and ran away into the hall. Someone was yelling in the principal's office. I overheard, and I think the principal was scolding Amber for the rumors that were going around about her. A minute later, Amber came out crying. Yeah, I wasn't the only one who got sick of it. She came over and offered a truce for my father, at least for a week. The thing was that Dad had a birthday in a week, and Amber wanted to throw a surprise at her house that Dad and I were supposed to attend. I didn't want to put up with her, but it was a great chance to establish a relationship with Dad and show him the messages, so I agreed. On the eve of his birthday, I prepared a special gift for my father. A poem. Dad kinda thought out a little, and when I said I also wanted to apologize to Amber for that shot, he was really happy. It was a big surprise. Amber had all Dad's colleagues and friends in the house. When did she get to know them? While everyone was hanging out, I slipped away to look for a laptop with a cherished chat. I just found it and was about to leave when I bumped into Amber at the door. She saw the laptop in my hands and immediately started clucking. Like you can't break into someone else's room like that. Blah blah. Did you have the right to break into my life? Dad came running at the noise, barely restraining my joy. I showed him the chat. See, Dad, I told you, all she wants from you is money. You should have seen the teacher's face. She blushed, confessed her debts and loans, and said she didn't want to involve him in her problems. She can handle everything on her own. Yes, of course. Sure, we believed you. But my father said he believed her. He closed the laptop without even looking at the chat and explained that Amber was in a difficult situation. Again, that dry tone, as if we were strangers. I couldn't stand it any longer and ran away. I hate Amber. Even at home, I couldn't hide from this snake. Dad used their picture as a wallpaper on his laptop. I had to do something. And then I got an idea. It may be cruel, but I decided to leak a photo of Dad and Amber kissing in the internet from an anonymous account. Let everyone think that the teacher seduced the student. I think neither the school nor the authorities will be happy about this. And Amber will get punished. Yes, Dad, I used your illness, but it's for your own good. I'm sorry. In the morning, I was wildly embarrassed and left for school early. There was a chaos. The photos spread all over the city. Journalists and police arrived. Was she really going to jail? Suddenly, Dad appeared. When he saw the crowd, he asked what was the matter. A minute later, the police were escorting Amber out. She looked very confused and I couldn't look her in the eye. Dad still didn't understand what had happened. While we were waiting for Amber at the station, my shocked dad was reading an article on the internet where there was a photo of him and Amber with a headline, "Photo of a teacher kissing a teenager turned out to be fake." He couldn't understand who could have done such a cruel thing to him, and I was embarrassedly silent. Soon, Amber was released. The cop asked her if she would file a libel complaint, but she refused. She knew I was behind it, though. I was afraid that she would tell Father, but all Amber told Dad was that they needed to break up, and then she quickly left. After that, Dad called her and even came to her place, but she ignored him. Dad got depressed and was all because of me. Did he really fall in love with her? I brought up the chat theme once again, and then I found out the truth. It turns out that Amber didn't need the money. She wrote about her mother, who needed an expensive surgery, and she had already gotten loans when Amber and Dad got together, so it turns out that her feelings were sincere. I tried to find Amber at school to apologize, but the scandal was so big that she was fired. I steeled myself to tell my dad the truth. I was the one who did it, and I was the one who made Amber leave Dad. I'd never spoken so sincerely in my life as I did at that moment. dad was in shock, but most importantly, he forgave me. He immediately called Amber, and we found out she was going to fly to Seattle. Her flight was today, and we rushed to the airport. There were only 5 minutes left before the boarding was over. But we made it! Amber heard me and Dad calling her name. She dropped her tickets and ran into Dad's arms. And then without a word, they hugged me. And then I realized that she wasn't my enemy, and my desire to protect my dad was actually jealousy. We've been living together ever since. Amber and I had a lot in common. For example, love for cats, hams, and of course, for Dad. Quite a nice set, isn't it, Fuzzy?
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm 17 years old. Has it ever happened that you immediately felt something bad when you met a person? As if you feel that you need to run away from him? I know it sounds weird, but I did. Watch this video to the end and you will find out what the inconspicuous teacher can hide. It all started with the fact that, because of my poor eyesight, my mother decided that it would be better for me to study at home. Don't think that I've become a recluse and have no friends. Since childhood, I've had a group of girls with whom we are still friends. We often go out together and have girls' night, so I don't feel alone. Even with my studies, I never had any problems, and I always studied alone. But the senior class came, and my mother decided that I could not cope on my own. My mother wanted me to go to a prestigious college, so she hired me a math tutor. I didn't like Mr. Sars right away. He was somewhat nervous and pale, and the material was explained in a low voice. When my mother passed us, he even twitched and started to blush immediately. But mostly, he was just a boring teacher who was preparing me for exams. Have you ever disliked a person at first sight? After almost every lesson, I told my mother to fire Mr. Sars and send him out of our house. But she insisted that I needed to study well for my exams if I wanted to pass them successfully and go to college, because education was so important. She always said that because she hadn't had a chance to graduate from college before, so she did everything she could to make sure that didn't happen to me. Of course, I agree with my mother. Studying is important. But this obnoxious teacher made me uneasy, and my mother was acting strangely. I once went for a run in the park next to our house, but I forgot my water bottle. I had to go back, and as I was approaching the house, I saw something from afar that I wanted to erase from my memory forever. My mother kissed Teacher Sars, and he got in the car and drove away. I just didn't understand what was going on. My mother and Mr. Sars? How was this even possible? My first thought was to run to my mother and ask her everything, but I didn't. I decided that I would not tell my mother anything, and I would start watching them. I just couldn't believe my mom was dating a nasty math teacher. I needed to find out how serious it was. I started paying attention to Sars and my mother, and I found a pattern. When I left the house, they immediately met and cooed sweetly together, just like doves. But when I was home and we were studying, they acted like strangers. This made me incredibly angry. I wanted to tell them to their faces, but the thought of my mother stopped me. I understood that after my father left us, my mother wanted to start a new relationship and be loved. But this teacher made me suspicious. So I wanted to somehow set him up. Maybe he was not who he said he was. So I had a plan. During one of our lessons, I put on a very revealing outfit, and my mother went to the store in the time. Everything went according to plan. I tried in every possible way to approach the teacher, to seduce him, but he did not give in to provocations, and was even afraid of it. When I sat down closer, he immediately sat apart and constantly wiped the sweat from his forehead. I could see that he was nervous and kept looking at his watch, looking away from me. After a failed attempt to provoke him, I decided that I would follow him to find out what he was doing outside of our house. But after observing Sars's movements for several days, unfortunately, I saw nothing suspicious. In addition to me, he was a tutor for several other families and after work went to the store and home. That's all. I was rather disappointed. I already gave up and was going to tell my mother straight out. I even prepared a speech that proved why they were a bad couple and why I didn't want them to date. But when I came downstairs, Mom said she had a surprise for me. At first, I was very happy, but then my mother moved away, and behind her sat the teacher and awkwardly waved at me. Now, I didn't understand exactly what was going on. This surprise got me freaking out. But then, my mother happily said that from today he would live with us. This was the last straw. I turned and slammed the door of my room. And what would you feel when a new man of your mother's appeared in your house who was a complete stranger to you? I was very angry with my mother. How could she do this to me? It was just not fair of her because we always shared everything. If she liked him, why didn't she tell me right away? I didn't let her into my room and I organized a strike, and I didn't have any more lessons with Mr. Sars. Just seeing him in the bathroom or in the hallway made me angry. So I sat in my room for several days and didn't leave it. This was my world where everything was good. I didn't have here this strange Sars who was definitely something, but I just couldn't figure out what it was. After a while, I came to terms with the fact that there was a new person in our house, but I still didn't like him and I often ignored him. Because of his work, he was often away from home, so it was tolerable. When he was at home, he cleaned, cooked, and tried to be nice. But at the same time, he was very strange. He didn't have many things, like he was moving out tomorrow. But my mother had blossomed and looked at him with such loving eyes. It broke my heart. It wasn't until later that I realized why he was acting like this. Once I went to a friend's birthday party with a sleepover. We had a great time, and for the first time in a long time, I was in a good mood. But when I got home in the morning, I noticed that Mr. Sars' car was not there. The door of the house was open, and my mother was not in the house at all. I got scared. I ran into the house and started calling and looking for my mother. When I went to her room, I found her tied to a chair and unconscious. Mom! I started to untie her, immediately called an ambulance, and we left. My mother was barely breathing. I was very worried about her and afraid of losing her. I was sitting in the corridor and I couldn't see anything around me. The doctor was about to come out and tell me what happened. At that moment, I even forgot about Sars and did not think about where he had gone. Finally, the doctor came out and said that my mother had overdone the sleeping pills mixed with alcohol, so she would have to stay at home for a few days. He warned that if something like this happened again, it could end badly, and she was lucky I found her in time. It was definitely not about my mom, and I began to suspect that Sars was involved. When we got home, I started asking my mother what had happened, but she was very weak and did not remember anything, only that they decided to have a romantic dinner. Everything went well. He kissed her. They drank wine. Apparently, he secretly used sedatives and, to be sure, tied her. I couldn't believe that my mother had been treated like this. And then, I remembered that there was a surveillance camera on the street side of our house, and I could see what he was doing. When I saw the recording, I was furious. While my mother was passed out, he took out all the jewelry, money, and electrical appliances. He just robbed us. I was furious. Now I realized that when he was acting strange and cleaning everywhere, he just studied where everything was. It turned out that he had robbed several other women that night. So the next day, we filed a report with the police, and they opened a case against him. My mother was depressed, because now it would be even more difficult for her to open up to men and find love. I supported her in every possible way and was always there for her. But I was bursting with anger at this freak. I wanted him caught and punished, and I hope they will. Cyrus did not take everything into account, so the police tracked his appearance on the cameras and made a sketch, and my mother and I tried to describe him as accurately as possible. We gave the police all his belongings, and there was hope that justice would prevail. My mother and I began to forget about it a little, and my mother felt better. We didn't look for tutors anymore, but not out of fear. I just decided that I could handle it myself. If you have ever encountered scammers, then write about it in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, put likes, and be careful. Have a nice day.